Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my channel. I'm going to get right into it here. The state of Detroit Pistons really has me frustrated. Being a Detroit Pistons fan for a long time, I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly with this team, but none as ugly as what I've been seeing for the past few years from this team. And we got to turn this thing around. I was watching one of my favorite YouTubers, Pistons Mike, last night. He was commenting on the game against the New York Knicks. We got blown out by 40 points. And I share his frustration, and Pistons fans alike share his frustration. This isn't what we're used to. I don't know what they're putting out there on the floor for us, but this is unacceptable. It's unacceptable. And I said myself personally that if Dwayne Casey wasn't over 500 after the first 10 games of the season, that he should be let go. I gave it a chance, and they extended it to longer than that. And I said, okay, well, we give him 20 games, and before I go in, and 20 games have passed, and we're way up under 500, and changes need to be made now. We need to get a different head coach in here. I'm not asking for anyone to be fired, but if that's what it comes down to, it has to be done. And I would like to see if Dwayne Casey actually step down as the head coach of the Detroit Pistons. Therefore, he'll kind of preserve his legacy, so to speak. But for him to get fired from this organization, it really looks bad, because it's like, well, the track record of what he's done with this organization is really bad. So that would be one thing that we would need to do, is to change our head coach. I mean, it's not getting better. I mean, you can't go out here and get blown out by 40 points to the New York Knicks. I was having a little bit of hope because of the recent victories against the Denver Nuggets and the Utah Jazz, but then you fall flat on your face against the New York Knicks. Yeah, something most definitely needs to be done as far as the coaching of this organization is concerned. So hopefully we see a move soon. And like I said, I prefer that Dwayne Casey bow out gracefully and just let someone else take over the helm here in Detroit. But we'll get into that more as far as coaching choices further into this video. But like I said, I'm just going to give my suggestions on some moves that I would like to see this team make. I do a lot of scouting and research on players and teams and things like that. So I'm just looking to put the Detroit Pistons in the best case scenario as far as turning this season around before it gets too far out of hand. We're at the quarter point of the season. All is not lost. We still have a chance to turn things around, but to be honest, I'm not as optimistic as I am for the Detroit Lions. We've got a long way to go as far as the Detroit Pistons are concerned. So just getting into it, these are just my suggestions here. So with the Cade Cunningham injury, there's a couple of moves that I would consider making. Number one, there's a player for the Motor City Cruise, goes by the name of Devontae Cacott. I like what I see from him. He's a force to be reckoned with, and to me, he has the aggressiveness, to actually be on the Detroit Pistons roster. So if we must fill that spot of Cade Cunningham and he goes out for the season, I would say either call up Devontae Cacott from the Motor City Cruise, or sign undrafted free agent Jordan Usher out of Georgia Tech. I've been advocating for Jordan Usher for a long time. I believe he has what Pistons need. I believe that is one of the players that they should have signed in the off season. I don't even think they brought him in the camp, but this guy's a real deal. I said before that he would have been the perfect running mate in the backcourt for Cade Cunningham. Boy, lightning struck 3 times, because now they have another opportunity to go sign him. And I say, Troy Weaver, reach out to Jordan Usher, Get him in here. Get him in the Pistons uniform ASAP. I keep saying that whoever picks this guy up is going to wind up having one of the players or a player that's going to go down as one of the greatest players in the history of the league, given the chance. And the Pistons have an opportunity to grab him once again. So, moving on to that, these are some trade suggestions that I have as far as the Pistons are concerned. One is Sadiq Bey and Isaiah Livers going to the Denver Nuggets for Zeke Naji and Bones Highland. Another trade I will make would be Nerlens Noel to the Clippers for Reggie Jackson, Corey Joseph to Phoenix for Torrey Craig, Cade Cunningham, Isaiah Stewart to the Washington Wizards for Kyle Kuzma and Daniel Gafford. But before I get going, I just want, ask yourself, would you prefer the Detroit Pistons to actually make it into the playoffs as one of the top 8 seeds with an entirely different roster than what you're used to seeing? Or would you prefer them to maintain the roster they have or retain the roster they have and possibly look at a play-in game or missing the playoffs altogether this season? You have to ask yourself, which one do you want to see? Would it be better to watch them go into the first round series in the upcoming playoffs with a totally different roster than we currently have? Or would you like to see them retain the same players and hope for the future and miss the playoffs entirely? You have to ask yourself that question. I prefer to see them make the first round of the playoffs and have a first round playoff series. That's what I prefer. You build momentum for the future, and you begin to catch the attention of free agents out there who may look at Detroit and say, hey, they got something going on. Looks like they're headed in the right direction, so I do want to be part of that. And I say that to say, for those fans that may say you're crazy for trading Cade Cunningham, I'm one. Whenever I do trade suggestions, I try and put players in the best case scenarios possible, which means I'm not going to take someone like a Cade Cunningham and send him in a trade package to a subpar team. I'm going to give him opportunity to go to a place where he could shine, or whatever player that is in that regard. Send them somewhere where they'll be able to contribute to the advancement, I guess you would call it, of the team that they get traded to. So, starting with this particular scenario and roster rebuild, and I say this because we're still early in the season. If you wait till these teams get on track and things start moving in a positive direction for some of these teams, they may be reluctant to make these deals. So you want to make them sooner than later, before these teams get on the roll and say, hey, I think we got something going on here, and then certain players become unavailable. I think we need to jump in early and start making some of these deals sooner than rather than later. So, like I said, starting with the Sadiq Bey, Isaiah Livers going to the Denver Nuggets for Zeke Naji and Bones Highland. The Nuggets are probably one of the top teams as far as being projected to make it into the NBA Finals, representing the Western Conference. They'll have a deep playoff run. Sadiq Bey, Isaiah Livers will be able to fit in and contribute and push the Denver Nuggets further towards the possibility of becoming an NBA champion this season. Zeke Naji, pretty good player. Bones Highland, can't say enough about him. He's that deep threat, that consistent three-point shooter that the Detroit Pistons need. He comes on and he balls pretty much every game in Denver. And, I've seen other YouTubers say the same thing. Hey, we should get Bones Highland from Denver. We should get Bones Highland from Denver. I think this is a perfect opportunity to make that deal swing. Another deal that I have is Nerlens Noel going to the Clippers for Reggie Jackson. They have a stacked backcourt there with the Clippers, and I think they could use another big man in Nerlens Noel. But as far as the center position is concerned, I think they're only have like one. Well, they got two centers on their roster. I think Diabate from Michigan, but it's going to be a minute before he gets it going. But Nerlens Noel, I think it gives him an opportunity to play for a competitor. As far as bringing Reggie Jackson back to the Pistons with a new head coach, of course, you bring him back in, and he had players around him before, but he's got a lot of young players around him now, and he could be a mentor for Jaden Ivey as well. So you look at some of the charts with the comparisons of these players in this particular scenario. As far as Sadiq Bey and Bones Highland is concerned, the one key thing that sticks out to me is the three-point percentage. You got Sadiq Bey shooting 27.2% from the three-point line. Got Bones Highland shooting 44% from the three-point line. They both average about 15 points per game. Bones Highland is averaging 3.6 assists per game, and Sadiq Bey is averaging 4.6 rebounds per game. And I'm aware that they do play two different positions, but I do think Bones Highland really helps Detroit as far as his accuracy from the three-point line. As far as the comparison between Isaiah Livers and Zeke Naji, they're pretty much about even in every category. They're pretty close to being even in every category. But I think Isaiah Livers would bring a lot to the Denver Nuggets. And Zeke Naji, playing in Denver, he plays behind Nikola Jokic and DeAndre Jordan and Jeff Green. I think he'll get the opportunity to shine with the Detroit Pistons, and we'll get the opportunity to see how special he is. And like I said before, the Nerlens Noel, Reggie Jackson comparison, we're not really getting anything out of Nerlens Noel to keep him. Reggie Jackson could come in and contribute right away. So yeah, that's part of that one deal. The other part of the deal that I like is Corey Joseph. I'm not going to dog him out as a veteran. There's been talk like, hey, why are we still holding on to this guy? Why are we still holding on to this guy? But with Chris Paul in Phoenix, if he goes down, I think he's been out a couple games and whatnot. You do get a solid veteran in Corey Joseph that's able to come in and handle the position at point guard. But the interesting part of this for me with the Denver Nuggets will be Torrey Craig. I'm sorry, I keep saying that because he used to play for the Denver Nuggets. The Detroit Pistons will be Torrey Craig. He will give them a defender, a very stout defender that can contribute on the offensive side as well. I mean, he averages 7.7 points per game, but like I said, he's a lockdown defender that would really help us at this juncture of the season. Other part of this trade is Cade Cunningham, and that's why I said before, what would you prefer? Would you prefer to see some of the same players on this roster and we miss the playoffs altogether, or would you rather see us go, at least get a first round series with someone and build towards the future with a different look on the roster? So Washington is really building something special there as well. They still have Bradley Beal. They got Will Barton, Monte Morris, Hachimura. Porzingis. So they really got something going on there with Washington. And that's why I say I'm not going to dog players by sending them to a subpar team. I think when Cade gets healthy and comes back, whenever he does come back, he will be able to contribute to the potential uprising of the Washington Wizards. On the other hand, we would get a hometown guy out of Kyle Kuzma. As far as the averages are concerned, Cade kind of has the edge over him, but I do feel like Kyle Kuzma would be more team oriented here with the Detroit Pistons. And like I said, it's pretty much be like a homecoming for Kyle Kuzma. So I would say I would offer that deal with the Washington Wizards, and the other part of that deal would be Isaiah Stewart going over to Washington for Daniel Gafford, the center, true center over there. Isaiah Stewart, he's always going to be one of my favorites because he went up against LeBron James. Not too bad, but if he can get into a team where he's not needed as far as the defensive responsibilities at the center position, it would be a lot better for him. He averages 12.4 points per game, 9.1 rebounds per game, shooting 36.5% from three. But like several people said, he's undersized for the Pistons at that position, and we really don't need him putting up three-pointers. He's an excellent rebounder. Kind of reminds me of not Dennis Rodman. I'm trying to think of the other guy's name. It'll come to me. He used to Manimal. Used to play for the Denver Nuggets. He has that kind of energy, but he needs to be put in a situation where that energy can be taken advantage of. And I believe that he will be part of something special that they build in Washington. On the other hand, what we get is a true center and a young fella in Daniel Gafford. I think he's only like 20-something years old or something like that. But we get a young guy that's a true 7-footer. And I'm not saying he's going to come in and shock the world, but you will at least have a legitimate center at that position. And he's, his averages are quite lower than Isaiah Stewart's, but like I say, he's a young guy still as well. And you bring him in, we get a true 7-foot center to go down in the paint along with Jalen Duren. And as far as the projected starters, this is what I would have for this particular roster. I would start Reggie Jackson as my point guard. Shooting guard, I have Alec Burks. I had Jalen Duren at the center position. Still, the jury's still out on Marvin Bagley III, but I think once he gets clicking, he's gonna get clicking. And you guys are watching any of my videos know that I'm not big on Duke players at all. But I'm willing to give him a chance. I like success stories, so I'm willing to give him a chance. And small forward Kyle Kuzma will be the starting small forward. And I know this shakes the roster up a little bit, but just take a look at what you have coming off the bench. And keep in mind, we're going to get down to the coaches as well. You got Jaden Ivey coming off the bench as a point guard, Killian Hayes as a point guard, Bones Highland as your shooting guard, and Hamidou Diallo as the other shooting guard coming off the bench. Daniel Gafford as your center, Zeke Naji as your power forward, Torrey Craig as your small forward, Bojan Bogdanovic as a small forward, Kevin Knox II as a small forward, and you got Rodney McGruder coming off the bench as well. And to me, this is a stacked roster that could make some noise. They could make some noise. I'm really big. Like I said, Reggie Jackson still has a lot in the tank. And I think it'll be good for him to come back to the Detroit Pistons and be part of this turnaround here. And like I said, looking at the bench is tight. Bench is tight on this one. And if you take a look around the league, you got players from the University of Kentucky. Most of those guys are in starting lineups, and they're top players on their team. You got Jamal Murray with the Nuggets. You got Devin Booker with the Phoenix Suns. You got Cat with the Minnesota Timberwolves, and I'm sure there's a few more guys out there from the University of Kentucky. You got Shaedon Sharpe out there in Portland. So, yeah, there's no reason that we shouldn't be seeing more of Diallo and more of Kevin Knox II out there. As far as the head coach is concerned, this is what I'm rolling with here. I'm looking at some of these guys deserve a second stint. Brian Shaw, Steve Nash, Scott Brooks, and Mike Miller. Scott Brooks was the one that was the head coach of those Oklahoma City Thunder teams when you had Russell Westbrook, James Harden, and Kevin Durant, and those guys on that roster. Yeah, I would love to have Scott Brooks as the head coach of this particular roster. Even moving forward, if we do decide to replace our head coach, I think that Scott Brooks should be one of the forerunners for that position for the Detroit Pistons when it's all said and done. So that's just my first take as far as an overhaul is concerned. I'll be putting a couple more of these up here. And like I said, the goal is to get this team back to being winners, to be something respectable in the league. And it may take some bold moves to do so, but as Pistons fans, we do deserve to have that, to have it done. So let me know what you think in the comment section, and hopefully we can get this thing turned around. We don't want to spend the whole, waste the whole season, so to speak. And like I said, as far as draft is concerned, there's a couple of guys that I think would fit, that actually would come in and move this team closer to being more of a, not necessarily a powerhouse, but getting them back to the level of being respected in the league. And one of them is Armando Bacot out of North Carolina, and the other one I'm looking at is Zach Edey, who was a teammate of Jaden Ivey at Purdue. So let me know what you think, and hopefully we get this thing turned around. Thanks for listening.